Yeah. We get lit, we get fly, we get drunk, we get high. But to the masses, we a podcast called Verified. I am your host. I am JopauL. Check us out at verifiedpodcast.com. We are brought to you by Radio Pushers and Results in No Hype. And right now, I'm honored to have a very special brother with me. Probably the most recognizable person when he wears his bow tie, other than Pee Wee Herman and Rizza Islam from the Nation of Islam. But you've probably seen him in some video games. You probably even seen him walk down the fashion runway. He reports the news. And, probably one of the best sportscasters that I know. Anytime that I need to know anything about basketball, I should have a fantasy league because, I could get like the inside scoop. You know what I'm saying? Inside scoop. Get it? But anyway, without further ado, my man, Brandon Scoop B. Robinson in the building. Thank you for coming to the Verified Podcast. How you doing, my brother?
JopauL, I'm doing good. Always a pleasure to connect with you in some way, somehow. Cheers. And long time coming, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For people that don't know, me and this guy right here, we have had a multi-year relationship. The funny thing is, it's like we clicked so quickly that I feel like I've known him since I was a kid. And I guess because we were both kind of growing in our careers at the same time, we shared a very common bond, and I consider him a true friend, and I probably always will, unless I do something to fuck it up. Because anyone that knows this guy, it's impossible to not be friendly with him. If you can't get along with him, there is something wrong with you. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
You're sticking to it.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
So how we doing today? How's your afternoon going so far?
Busy. At the time of this recording, it is NBA All-Star Weekend, and I'm not in Atlanta. COVID is not something I'm trying to immerse myself in with basketball, but that doesn't
Can you see my notes? That's literally one of my questions. How do you feel, about All-Star Weekend, Atlanta, these parties, COVID, people just saying, secret location, DM me for details. It's fucking crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, first and foremost, my phone it still rings, and I was a little late to your recording because Blake Griffin reached a buyout with the Detroit Pistons, and he cleared waivers today at 5:00. And it's likely he'll sign with the Brooklyn Nets, a team that's loaded right now with James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and more. So I've been doing TV today. I've been doing tweeting, writing, all that good stuff. But as it relates to COVID, it is a very precarious time. It is a lot of people in close spaces. I've seen stuff on IG stories with just people at parties and just it's not my thing. I was speaking to someone in the industry who's known, who told me that the NBA sent tons of cease and desist letters. Anything that had like an NBA logo.
I saw that.
Anything that promotes it, and the NBA usually does this regularly for All-Star Weekend. Like I know people who have thrown parties in the past, and I sent it to the league office and asked what they thought of the flyer. They were like, "Yo, you got to take this off." But this is an even more focused attempt because they don't want to have anything associated with their name that they're not part of. So, Atlanta, it seems to be, they say people don't get it, but, I pray, I know some people down there for that weekend, and I pray they come home safely and that they don't spread that elsewhere.
Yeah. I've had a couple of theories in mind, and I've heard a couple of, very smart people talk. And in a lot of the places where and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I could be in total left field, but it's like, it feels like the places where they're lifting the mask mandates and they're encouraging people to kind of get back to normal quicker than kind of you should. It seems like it's largely circulated around the Black and brown communities in those areas. So I was speaking with some person, I can't really remember, and they were talking to me about, a forced genocide approach by society to try to, get rid of people, mainly the Black and brown communities. That's why it's open in, Florida, Houston, all over Texas, Atlanta. So it's like, are people not getting the message that COVID is real and dangerous? I just can't fathom this world right now. It's very, very weird to me what's going on.
I have a couple theories. One, you and I are New York based, and so New York is the epicenter. was the epicenter. And I realized in having conversations with friends, the further south you go, how they feel about COVID becomes more liberal. I went to college in Pennsylvania. A conversation I may have with someone in Pennsylvania may be different than one that I had with someone in North Carolina versus someone in South Carolina, Texas, Mississippi, and more. And so, but the conversation that I'm having with someone in LA is the same.
Okay.
I feel as though with the vaccine moving and with people opting to get it, I think we're still figuring a lot of things out. But I think, or I'll say that your theory that you propose is things that is kitchen table talk with peers, my peers.
So I'm not far off. I just wanted to make sure I didn't sound
you're
like
not
a
far
crazy
off.
person.
I'm careful of my words because I got eyes on me. But what I'll say is you're not far off, and I think that you got to be careful. I think masking until 85% of the country, as they say, with the vaccine is vaccinated. I think you got to be careful. You know, and the NBA All-Star Weekend is in Atlanta. Those guys are getting top-notch care, which is different than people flying to Atlanta.
Exactly.
Just
yeah,
to be
I mean,
still.
I try to exercise on the side of caution. I try to preach the good word whenever I can, and I respect the culture so much that I have enough common sense to speak on it. Whereas you see a lot of celebrities kind of like hanging back and not really saying anything. For some reason, they feel like it's something political, and I'm not trying to get political at all. I'm just trying to get back to work, get back to normal, get back to safe environment where I can go and mack it to some chick, tongue her down, and not worry that she was breathing someone else's air, and now I got COVID. So,
Right.
so and being that we're on the subject, how are you doing mentally, physically, spiritually from dealing with this past year of just insane fuckery? How are you?
I am good, thank God. For me, I'm sad that there were a lot of lives lost, over 500,000. I am, the duality of that is the fact that even though I'm sad about the losses, I have done a lot. I've had a lot of time to sit and think and reflect and rest. I think, like I've shared this with colleagues and friends.
You rest, you sleep. Is that actually possible? I don't. That's straight cap right there. This guy does not sleep. He does not rest. But go ahead, continue.
I'll tell you that I think, I went away to school. So for me, undergrad, I've been on the road 17, 18 years. I count colleges, going away, being on the road, grad school, being back. But then after grad school, traveling, moving, piecing things together, building things, making things happen. And I think this is the first time since probably my senior year of high school that I've been still. And I love it.
Okay. So for somebody in your situation that, is living very, very fast paced and jumping, from interview to interview, to game, to sports arena and back again, I can understand where it's like, okay, I'm kind of forced to pause now because we can't really do anything, and I want to be safe, and I want to keep, my people safe. So, yeah. Okay. How's the family doing?
Family's good. I have, my parents, my mom and stepdad are both educators. My sister's in graduate school, and watching them do this whole digital thing is interesting, particularly because, even when I was on the road, I was traveling but working from home. Mm-hmm. So to see people work from home like it's fashionable, it's interesting to watch my parents do it. My sister is a I guess you consider her as Gen Zer. It's interesting to just see the dynamics of what she's showing them, Zoom calls, having conversations about stock options and stocks and Cash App and PayPal and all that different stuff. I remember it was a big deal when I was in undergrad and I was going to buy books off of eBay. And it's like, well, why don't you just buy them from the bookstore? I feel like that is a graduated version of that, because they're old school. So family's good. I've gotten a chance to catch up with a lot of family and friends, during COVID on the phone. And yeah, man, I'm family's all right.
I'm glad everyone is all right. Let's jump right into your story. Let's get the real scoop, B. So anyway, so now I know your story firsthand. For my viewers that are not privy, to the friendship of Brandon Scoopy Robinson, I want to talk about the early years. So talk to me about young little Brandon, coming up. Give me like the elementary school Brandon. Like what was life like for you? Where'd you grow up? Talk to me about your surroundings, fashion that you were wearing, music that you were listening to. What was going through your head?
The foundations for me, even before I stepped foot in a grade school, started in both Harlem and Northern New Jersey. My parents divorced when I was 3. Okay. My mom's from Harlem. My dad is from Jersey City, New Jersey. And my stepfather was the man in my life who raised me. He's from Chicago. And my family ran and operated 2 shoe businesses, a sneaker store called the Athlete's Foot, the only Black-owned Athlete's Foot in New York State. And then we ran a shoe store, a men's shoe store called Men's Walker. So I was
That's right. So when you talk about Brandon Scoopy Robinson, he don't know the word defeat unless, of course, you're going into one of these shoe stores and you need to get some sneakers or shoes. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah.
Defeat.
So
I've been drinking a little bit. So listen, I knew we were going to have some fun here. So just indulge me. That's it with my corny jokes. Hopefully my fans like it.
No, you're good. So I used to see, different folks coming in and out of that store. Dizzy Gillespie, the Wayans brothers, Mike Tyson, Dominique Wilkins, you name it. So that kind of set my foundation as far as just like building with athletes, celebrities, and more. And but in addition to that, I was introduced to the game of basketball from my uncle who ran Citywide, which anybody who came out of New York City played in it. That went to the NBA, Kenny Anderson, Stephon Marbury, etc. And I would often spend time with him at Riverside Church and Riverbank State Park in Harlem. And essentially, I fell in love with the game of basketball. I had a cousin who was a ball boy with the Knicks in the '70s when Walt Clyde Frazier was there. And kind of just basketball was just something that I enjoyed.
Now, were you any good? And be honest. Like if you went up to the Rucker, would they like laugh you out of there?
I wouldn't play.
Okay, all right. Because listen, because you're a big man, regardless. I mean, what are you like 6'5", 6'4"?
6'5". So it's interesting you bring that up. Like a lot of my friends that I went to prep school with, they ended up being Division I athletes, either through and some went to the next level, football, NBA, at large. I was tall and I was big like them. I wasn't as good as them, but I knew my calling, back then. So I kind of knew the cadence of how to communicate with athletes at that point.
Gotcha. Was it like one like big air ball and you were like, I'm gonna report basketball instead of playing it?
No, I think for me, it just you looked at you kind of like even if you're a rapper or you're a journalist, you kind of look at your peers and you can kind of size up who's who. Like who's somewhat gifted, who's very gifted, who's trash. I was the guy who would, sometimes hang out, practice, play open gym. I just knew my strengths and I knew my calling wasn't in journalism. So for me, it was always practice to get to this point. So, elementary school or grade school, Harlem were those foundations, just kind of identifying that. And I think the big caveat there for me was, my stepdad, as I said, was from the west side of Chicago, literally down the street from the old Chicago Stadium where the Bulls played. And he turned on to Channel 4, NBC4, and Michael Jordan and the Bulls won. And that was the year that they won their first championship in 1991. And, I was enamored.
I think the entire nation was, like, when we saw Michael play. I mean, it's like I was always a really, really short shit. So it's like I consider myself like extremely vertically challenged. Like, I mean, I wish they would give me a handicap sticker already because I'm shorter than shit. So, but my basketball game was pretty good. But right. I would never be able to reach that level because of my size, unless obviously Muggsy Bogues, his short ass, he could jump and touch the top of the rim. I mean, top of the, the board practically. But I think Michael Jordan had an impact on pop culture, as a whole, because we've never, like, or at least our generation. I don't know how it was for our parents, even though like your parent was telling you that, putting on the TV and Michael Jordan, it's like we wanted to be like Mike, like every one of us. So,
Right.
so I could see, how that would like flip a switch. It's like you already like the game of basketball, and now you're seeing this godly superstar like figure. So I can see it. I can see it. So yeah, continue.
Nah, so I mean, that kind of set the foundation, watching basketball and playing for fun, gym class, and being in the family sneaker store, and just kind of those early days. And I think just was a fascination. I think growing up, playing NBA Jam, wearing French toast jackets, Levi jeans.
Don't forget about the starter jackets. Those starter jackets.
I didn't wear. I had one starter jacket back then. Actually, I think I might have. Yeah, I had one. I had a Knicks starter jacket. I have more starter jackets that you can count now because I have a partnership with Starter, which is pretty cool.
That's dope. My boy Rob Love just had the original owner of Starter on there, and like his name is like just escaping me right now for some strange reason, but probably because of all the Jack Daniels I'm drinking. So, but to hear about the story of the birth of Starter and then how it, went public and how it impacted the culture, and basically, it bonded pop, sports, and hip hop all in one.
It did. It did.
So
it did. And I think, you appreciate those formative years. I didn't wear a ton of Air Jordans. I didn't get my first pair of Air Jordans of my own until I was getting ready to go to college my freshman year. I had a pair of Jordan 3s.
Same. Because I have a twin brother, and we never really made. And my parents never really made too much money. I mean, my father was an accountant, my mother was a teacher. And we did okay. But it's like, imagine, having twins, in the 80s. So it's like, instead of getting the Air Jordans, it's like 1 year we were able to get like the pumps, but we had to share them. Like, and Monday he would wear them, Tuesday I'd wear them, Wednesday he'd wear them, Thursday I'd wear them. I think I said this on another podcast. And if we ever got in trouble, we couldn't wear the pumps. We had to wear like Decks or Keds or our British Knights.
British Knights, BK Damasel's. So I mean, that was kind of the fashion part of it. But I think, I wore Ewing sneakers. I wore LO bean jackets sometimes. I went to prep school. I went to private school for except a year and a half of my schooling, from grade school to high school. I went to 13 different schools in 2 different states, 2 different high schools.
That must have been tough. Now, how did you adjust to that? Because as a young man growing up, in society at that time, we're talking like mid late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. So how were you able to adjust to that, with so many different schools? Because I know, like, I had like a real bond with my friends in junior high school, but where I lived in relation to all of them, we went to completely different high schools. So it's like I had completely different friends. I can only imagine doing it 13 different times. So how are you not crazy? Like, how'd you get through it?
I mean, I was a very gifted kid, but I was a very undisciplined, hyperactive kid. And I remember getting calls the first day of school, come get your son.
Oh shit. Let me find out that you were a little mayhem back then. Yeah, hey, you got to tell the story. So what'd you do? Listen, I got suspended fucking a couple of times. I can't talk about it on here, but crazy. I didn't do it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I got kicked out of school for kicking a girl down the stairs in like pre-K kindergarten.
Whoa. Did she deserve it? That's all I want to know.
I don't remember it. That's what they tell me. I know I got a call.
Oh shit! So you were a crazy motherfucker. So you like blacked out. You were a split person. So it was your other personality that did it. Like that was Scoop B. Brandon Robinson was in school. Scoop B kicked her down the stairs.
I think for me, me being a product of a a blended household, later a single parent household and a divorce marriage. I was lacking, my dad in the home. My dad and my mom split. My dad wasn't around. And I think that one of the things that was definitely a blessing, despite the fact that my father was not around, was that, my mom found a church for us to join, and got me involved in just various activities, whether it was public speaking, whether it was the church choir, whether it was the church mentoring group for Black men. I went to a fairly large church that has close to 10,000 members. It's a mega church. But I was there when it was like maybe 500 members, and it grew.
I think that was blasphemous of me to curse and say, "Oh shit," when I'm talking about when you're talking about the church.
No.
But I mean, I'm Jewish, so he's not going to mind. It's all good.
But no, I think that those foundations, surely grounded me in that regard. But I think, even with that, schools I went to, basketball, and just, even cartoons.
So you had certain vices that really intrigued you, and interested you. So basically kept you on the straight and narrow after you did what you did and got kicked out of school. I mean, listen, we see the era of our destruction, and I say this on every podcast, this is a great time for me to say it. You can never regret a decision that you made in the past, because then that would mean you don't fully appreciate who you are today. So in essence, some of the bad shit that you've done was actually the right things to do if you appreciate who you are today. If you hate yourself, then you can live in regret, and and there's numbers for that, and seek help, because mental health is very important.
Yes,
so
sir. Yes,
so
sir.
anyway, so how did it feel when you first went away to college? Talk to me about how you broke the news to your parents that you were going away to school, that you were leaving the nest, so to speak, or were you staying at home and commuting back and forth?
Well, college was expected for me. It was
I would say demanded, based on the, my knowledge of your family. I'm sure expected. It was demanded. It was like, you're going to college.
Yeah, but I think it was a matter of finding the right school. The school that I went to was actually a safe school that ended up, asking me to come visit. And the thing that got me was the cafeteria food. And then I felt like they put on all the bells and whistles, and then once you got there, the food was trash.
Okay, and now was this Eastern or Hofstra?
Eastern University.
Okay. See, I did listen. There was some things I didn't know about you. In researching you, I was like, holy shit! I was like, I didn't know about that. I was like, I guess we never spoke about that. But yeah. Okay.
But it's crazy because when I went to school, well, in answer to your question, like going to school there, I grew a lot. It was a small Christian school. They had a lot of rules, like visitation. Like you had this thing where like there was no visitation of the opposite sex on Wednesday. If you had someone in your room,
really, you had to adhere to the to the room for the Holy Ghost.
You did, and then
fuck out of here. I would have dropped out immediately. Shit.
And then like there had visitation rules. Like if somebody of the opposite sex was in your room, you had to have the door open with the light on.
So they could watch freaky motherfuckers.
Or like
I like that shit. They're like, come on, yeah, come watch. I got the door open.
But I mean, it was cool. And then I remember like towards the end, they changed the rule book a little bit. Like they added to the rule book, like they had a rule like, okay, you have to have a full light on, but you had to have like a desk lamp on at the very least, and there was no spooning.
No, we ain't spooning. We fucking. Like, I don't know what the fuck you doing, but shit, I don't know how you were created, but your parents fucked in college, and that's how your ass is here. So
yeah, man. So I mean, my time at Eastern was cool. I was a public address announcer and DJ for basketball games at the school.
Now was that your first time actually doing broadcasting? Because I know you were more on like the journalistic side. Actually, I mean, I know you wear many hats. I know you do it all. You're like a fucking magician. You're like the chameleon. You could change exactly to whatever you need to do. But was that like your first time actually like broadcasting like out, or were you already doing that?
No. So at 12, I had a radio show with the New Jersey Nets at the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was talking about like more like in your adult life, and stuff like that. But you know what? But that's a perfect segue. How did you get that when you were 12 years old? You fucking child prodigy, you. How did you manage to charm all. I mean, listen, I've seen the videos, so I know you were a cute little motherfucker back then. So put on that smile, like, yo, little Scoop B, yo, he was
Yes.
a little charmer. But yeah, tell
So,
that story, and then we'll get back to broadcasting at the college games.
so I mean, essentially, my mom's friend had told her that, you remember the crash dummies?
Of course,
All right, so
I've used them in several of my like punchlines, for some of my rhymes. So
all right,
definitely.
so essentially, they were looking to create kids' personalities, like 6 to 8 kids, who would be part of the Air Force of Oswald Radio, which was a radio station at Liberty Science Center in Jersey City.
Okay.
And the auditions were at Chelsea Pier, and hundreds of kids auditioned for the first one. I got the call. I wowed them, and then the second call for
Obviously.
audition was at Dangerfield's Comedy Club, and killed that. And
Okay.
so I was one of the 8 finalists. And then what happened was we got the first call. They wanted us to do like tape commercials with the crash dummies, and so I did that like one time, and then the Nets were rebranding at the time. So this was like 97, 98 season. Ironically, the Bulls' last dance season with Michael and Scotty and Dennis Rodman. And so the Nets had Keith Van Horn as their first round pick. And John Calipari was the head coach. They had Jason Williams, Sam Cassell, Kendall Gill, all those guys. And, they had a radio show, a kids radio show. They had sponsors from like McCain Elios, Robert Wood Johnson, like they had the big sponsors. And I hosted the show with Albert King, who was a former NBA player, brother of NBA legend Bernard King. And so that show was featuring NBA Inside Stuff with Ahmad Rashad and Willow Bay on NBC. And so what ended up happening was I did that show for like 2 years. The second year, we had an additional co-host who, is now at WFAN. His name is Evan Roberts. He does a show with Carton on the afternoon drive, I believe. So he and I were both young kids getting an early start. And, it opened a lot of doors. Like I remember being a kid, sitting down with like Rick Moranis from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh, that guy's fucking awesome. I love him.
He is. He is.
If you ever seen, like, I mean, I saw a story about him recently about, why he chose to step away from, doing movies, and it was to take care of, I believe his sick wife. And it was, I mean, it was a beautiful thing. He's like, he was like, fuck these movies. He's like, I could care less. He's like, I'm here for, my wife. So I really respect that. But so basically what you're telling me is you had talent, you flaunted it, they saw it, and now, you basically started from the bottom, and now you're here.
Well, still growing. So, I mean, the Nets definitely gave me a firm foundation. I remember sitting in a locker room with Karl Malone, Reggie Miller, Michael Jordan, meeting Michael Jordan.
That's like cool. Like that's one of those people that like I would like fan out. Like I would compose myself, obviously, but it's like I'd be like, hi, Mike, Jordan, nice to meet you. Thank you. Bye. Like I'd probably like act like that, and I'm not really like that around celebrities at all. Like I mean, you know me, I keep a cool, calm posture, but Michael Jordan, he's one of them. I'd probably be like,
yeah, definitely. And I mean, it was. I'm glad you meet your heroes. Everybody says you're not supposed to meet your hero. I'm glad I met both of my heroes within a certain range. I met, Michael in the 90s. I met Jay-Z in 2015.
You lucky motherfucker. The only cool thing is I performed for Jay-Z, not for him directly, but he was at the Apollo when I performed. I got to show you I got the VHS at my parents' house. When COVID's over and we could actually get together, I'll show you it. Like, I mean, you could see there's actually a part where I'm performing and I look up and I have this fucking cheesy fucking smile on my face because he was popping back then. This was like, 2000, 2001. He was like blasting onto the scene, like, in a huge way. So you see me looking up and I'm like smiling. I'm like, oh shit. So you got to meet your idols. You know what I think? I think from working in the sneaker and shoe store, was it a sneaker and shoe store or a shoe store?
Both. It was a men's shoe store and called Men's Walkers, and then there was a sneaker store called The Athlete's Foot. It was a franchise.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to, have my facts correctly. I feel like because you worked in such like a in such an iconic place like that and you met all of these celebrities, I feel like it gave you almost like that early bred experience to not freak out when you see celebrities and treat them like normal people, especially when you're working at the store and you're servicing them. It's like the same thing, with reporting. It's like you're trying to shine a great light on them. So it's like you had that experience from day one, which I think
Right.
added to your success. So
For sure. No, man, I think the
kudos,
combination.
my brother.
Thank you. So I think the combination of that, but also um, the citywide with my uncle as well, because you're around
Okay.
basketball directly, and I think So I remember spending some summers at Rucker Park. I remember Riverside Church, spending some time at West Fourth Parks. I remember, just spending time with my uncle and watching him get up, and not just him, multiple uncles get up in the morning, shave, put on cologne, and then that ride from up to, from the ride from the Upper West Side where he lived to to Riverbank State Park, or just it was like a whole soundtrack.
I got you. Well,
And
speaking about soundtrack, what were you listening to, like, growing up? Like, what were like some of like the artists that were in like your Sony Walkman? Or I mean, I'm not sure if like that if I went too early with it. I mean, you might have had an iPod before a Walkman, but what were like,
so
what was the soundtrack to Scoop B's movie if we were to play it?
so growing up, I played in a classical orchestra. I played the saxophone. It was like a traveling orchestra.
I played the trumpet.
There you go.
This is why we get along, Scoop. I'm telling you, it's not just the bald heads that keep us in common.
Yeah. So I mean, growing up, my stepfather is a musician as well. He traveled all over. So for me, early on, growing up, I was not allowed to listen to hip hop music because I grew up in the church. However, that didn't mean I wasn't still listening to it.
Okay.
So growing up, like I listened to a lot of.
With Jesus, he finds a way.
Yeah, of course. So like I grew up listening to anything from Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie to the Lion King soundtrack, to Kirk Franklin Family, to Bobby Brown's My Prerogative. I remember that was the first tape that I had. I had a Sony, like my kid Sony.
Still have it. I can remember the bus trip to DC where I had my Sony Walkman. I had my Bobby Brown, My Prerogative tape, and I wrote down every fucking word because I wanted to be able to sing that shit as I danced at the school dance, and I still know it to this day. So,
For
Bobby,
sure.
if you want to do a duet, we can do it.
There you go. And I remember my mom gave me that tape, and I would play it, and she ended up getting mad because I was like 4 or 5 years old. Everybody's talking all this stuff
about me. Why don't they just let me? Tell me why.
And she was like, "Yeah." She hid that tape. So,
I don't know why, because the video he was thrusting his pelvis a little too much.
I didn't see the video. I just had the audio.
Oh, okay. Well, let me tell for all the people that are listening, in the video, he was like, it's my, and he's pumping the shit out of the fucking air. Like, I mean, you want to talk about like early thrusting, Bobby Brizown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, for me, like, I think there was such of a smorgasbord of
that's the devil music, is what your parents were probably saying.
No, they didn't say devil's music. They would say it was worldly. That's what they would say. So growing up, I didn't really listen to a ton of. I wasn't allowed to listen to it, but I still listen to it. As far as my early experiences of hip hop, I remember Onyx. I remember Queen Latifah. I remember UNITY. I remember
that's a unity.
Yeah, I remember Crisscross, Jump. I remember.
Shit, I had my Atlanta Braves, jersey, and I wore it to school backwards. I had my cross colors gear, and man, good times.
Kid Play. I remember all that stuff. I remember, early starting school, going to school in Manhattan, to then, starting to go to school in Newark, New Jersey, and just that adaptation and just the difference between, New York culture and the New Jersey culture, and just adapting to both. I remember at the time, by the time I was going to school in Jersey, like Naughty by Nature was a big deal, and then, just as the 90s continued to progress, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, was my show, and that encapsulated so much my love for lifestyle, and I related a lot to Will. You know, so I had an uncle just like Uncle Phil. So for me, the combination of just that culture scene, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Family Matters, TGIF on Fridays, Family Matters, Boy Meets World, Dinosaurs, all that stuff. I just continue to grow. But those foundations with the Nets, the sneaker store, and more definitely paid dividends.
Hey, well said. Now, I mean, a quick question while we're on the subject of like the early shows that you used to watch. So this is like before cable. So it's like, being that you're in journalism and you're such a a big part of it. I mean, you said epicenter, like you're kind of in the epicenter of the sports broadcasting universe right now. Like, I mean, you're one step shy of a 7-figure contract from ESPN, if you ask me. And if they call me, I will vouch for you. So if you need to put me down as a reference, let me know. I just want 10%. But it's like the fact that you were able to capitalize on all of these great moments within your life kind of sculpted you into who you are today, which is such a testament to how hard you've worked. Because like I remember those late night phone calls when shit was fucked up, when like people were trying to throw dirt on your name, but meanwhile they were the fucking crazy fucking rat bastard fucking thieving cunt, and we're not even gonna bring that name up, even though like I was gonna try to like do something in the intro to kind of like be like, and we got special guest, and I was gonna like say her name, but nah, not gonna happen. No. I found Jesus. Okay, I'm good. So when did you first like realize that you had a love for hip hop? Because I know eventually, you were a contributor, to the Source magazine, which was, one of like, the greatest publications of the hip hop culture, that we know of. So it's like, when did you know that, this music was not the devil's music, or was not worldly, but it was something for school?
Yeah, I think I always knew there was a tie. My uncle owned a house on Cedric Avenue in the Bronx, and I used to stay.
Okay, birthplace of hip hop.
Yes, sir. I have my aunt used to babysit LL Cool J. I had my kid Capri is my cousin's godfather. So like I've always been intertwined with it.
Oh shit! Talk about degrees of separation. That's like that's movie shit right there.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, like I've always been around it. I think that just finding the duality of being a church kid, but also knowing being a child of hip hop and an era of hip hop, you pick your spots. So as it relates to like falling in love with hip hop, I've always been around it. Even Michael Jackson, I enjoyed his work, and I remember it was a big deal, like when the Free Willy movie came out and you called 1-800-4-Whales and they sent you a free tape, which had the soundtrack, that song from the Free Willy soundtrack. I mean, I remember listening to Whitney.
That's nostalgic right there, because I remember that shit.
Yeah. I remember Whitney Houston when she was really moving in the early 90s. And so I mean, even that dovetailing to 94 when Jay had the futuristic flow. I can't get with that. Like, to me, that was just like insane. I think that
I mean, I used to love that shit. Speaking about that early Jay-Z, I had DJ Chubby Chub on my podcast a bunch of months back, and he told me this crazy story about how he almost killed Jay-Z and Dame Dash at the same time. After like a long night out, he was DJing. They forced him to drive, even though he was fucking tired as shit. And all of a sudden, he's like, funny ass story. But go ahead, continue. So you fell in love with hip hop when you heard them.
Yeah, I mean, and then I clearly remember the Fugees and the Score album, and just Killing Me Softly, and learning the history of Roberta Flack, and then the Fugees and that, and then Nas's If I Ruled the World off the It Was Written album, and just over time, just growing with it. As I feel like I grew with hip hop as hip hop grew with me, and as I went through grade school. So by the time 97, 98 came along, you're seeing like the Rush Hour soundtrack, and you're seeing Ferrari and Jaguar switching
Switch your forward
lanes,
lane,
top down
top
swinging
down,
back
screaming
money.
out money thing. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
listen, those were like the golden years for me because that was when I first got my license and I turned 17 and 18 and I first started, like, I mean, I was always, kind of liberated in the world and did what I want, even though like, my parents used to punish the shit out of me because I was a badass kid. But it's like during those years, it was like, it kind of, I mean, I guess it was a rite of passage, so to speak, because it's like you grew with the evolution of hip hop, and it was ours. It was finally something that was kind of tangible to us. Didn't belong to our parents. It didn't belong to the younger kids. Didn't belong to the older kids. Like this shit was ours because it was happening right then and there.
the game is mine. We won't gracefully bow out. Yeah, I think just over time, I grew with it, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Puff. I didn't listen to a ton. Like I knew Biggie and Pac's hits, but I think when I got to college, I retroactively really just sat down and listened to it because I had a better appreciation and context back then.
Okay.
But Puff definitely. I think he was different because Puff was literally the prep school kid that came from the hood and assimilated to Mount Vernon.
Yeah, I literally think I got my first hand job to Mommy Banaki. I wanna be your papi chulo. Nut busted. 3 seconds, like a fucking like little 13-year-old nothing. Like,
yeah,
thanks,
man.
Puff. Appreciate you, Diddy. My man.
Nah, man. So I think at the end of the day, like, I feel like again, hip hop and my relationship with hip hop grew as I progressed to different, ages. I remember, coming home from school and listening to Funk Flex or after Angie Martinez show. I remember running home, when Jay put out the Super Ugly track on Nas, and then they replayed it on Funk Flex's show. I remember
that was nuts. You know what I most remember about radio back in those days?
What?
Every single time that I had driver's ed, this was literally like 2 months after Biggie was murdered. And every single time we were in the car, the teacher would let us listen to the radio. Cool ass teacher. I can't remember her name. I would have shouted her out, but through all those years, I smoked too much weed. I can't remember. But every single time, was every step I take. And it was like, it would just remind you over and over and over that he's gone and he's dead. And it's like, how am I supposed to drive? And I'm a 16-year-old kid, learning how to drive. I used to smoke a lot of weed, took a lot of acid, what I'm saying? So I was in my emotions all the time. They're like, so I was tearing up, all the time. So that's the one thing I really remember about radio, besides, Jay-Z and Nas, going back and forth. Like that was, radio used to mean something. It used to mean something, especially when Scoop B was on CBS Radio. It really used to mean something.
It used to mean something, but I think digital has its place too. And I think digital both supplements and sets its own. But I do remember those, I talked about, Hot 97, and I remember when Power 105, there was no commercials when it first came on. And I remember also flipping between Angie Martinez's show and Mike and the Mad Dog on the Sports Radio 66 WFAN. So I remember, when the Yankees were playing well. And, you had Bernie Williams, David Cohn, Derek Jeter, and all those other guys, Cecil Fielder, and switching between, WFAN and Hot 97 and, that duality. It's so interesting to see the duality. You can do both. You see Rosenberg on the Michael K show, but he also does the morning show on Ebro in the morning with Laura Stiles and Ebro Darden. So,
and he also does the wrestling shit too.
He does. And I remember being a wrestling fan as a kid. So, for me, like, I remember Razor Ramon and Jeff Jarrett and the British Bulldog, rest in peace. And, and all of those guys, Goldust, Yokozuna.
My favorite was the Ultimate Warrior and Strike Force before Demolition killed them.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
rest
sir.
in peace to Strike Force. Even though, like, afterwards, like, they were both, like, individually, great wrestlers. It's just, I remember the day. I mean, I gotta imagine that it's probably like for Catholic kids, finding out that Santa Claus is not real. It's like when me and my twin brother find out that wrestling is not real, and it's just like, it's just like, we were at the circus, and my parents were like, "Oh, it's just like the wrestlers." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I was like, Like they're like, oh, like I mean, you know that they don't really hurt each other. And then I was like, what? I was crushed, But yeah, shout out to Rosenberg because he wears many hats, and you know, in the grand scheme of things, I wanted to ask you with regards to you know you taking a turn to only sports. Did you fall out of love with hip hop, or were you jaded by hip hop, or did you just say, you know, my time has passed and this is my true passion and I need to focus all my time on it? I know it's a
Basketball,
very open-ended question. So
basketball was always my first love as it related to passion, purpose, and more. Hip hop was something I enjoyed, and the lifestyle is something I've enjoyed, and I've always known that hip hop,
oh yeah, the bitches, the hoes, the fucking drugs, money. Yeah, shit. Well, I don't know
all of
what
that,
you're talking about.
all of
I
that.
don't
No,
I don't do those things.
but at the end of the day, I think that as I got older and hip hop continued to grow with me, I remember my mom used to say to me, "Everything in life is not about basketball," and I didn't want to hear that. But I think one of the things that I appreciated as an adult after I finished grad school, I was living in my grandmother's basement apartment paying rent, and essentially nobody was knocking on my door trying to hire me. I have a master's degree. I'm trying to pay student loans, trying to pay gas and electric, all those other things. And it's like, okay, so where's the job? Why isn't ESPN calling? Why isn't TNT calling and Fox Sports and all those other things? So, I got into a situation where, I was at the Source magazine, but they interviewed me, but they didn't have a budget to pay me, and I made a choice. Am I going to work for free and develop contacts and all those other things, or am I just going to keep doing what I was doing? And before Source came along, I was freelancing at about 11 to 12 different publications, and built relationships with people. Was writing locally, and got some stuff that got some national hits, and just continued to grow. By the time I got to Source magazine, I was at press conferences with NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, where he's banning Donald Sterling from owning the Clippers, and just those viral moments, and just continue to grow. So, I think for the Source, working for free, but also developing relationships in that regard, open doors. Learning how to.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm part of this like business networking group with a 20-year bad boy executive named Sean Prez. He runs this thing called the Power Move Makers.
Mhm.
And the one thing that we preach on this show, is and I'll tag you in it next time. It's every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. It's great on IG Live, even though I know that you're the busiest freaking person in the world. But uh, the best thing is to get in somewhere where you can open some doors. If you just sit in your house and do absolutely nothing, it makes no sense. So at least you could do something, that you have a little bit of a passion for, even though it's not really paying the bills, but it opens doors for future endeavors. And it teaches you kind of like a trade. It's almost like the School of Hard Knocks, just on the journalistic side of things, because you also see the foul shit that goes on, in business. And I do want to talk about that. How were you able to realize that after somebody tried to run a smear campaign on you, that you were strong enough to push through it and restore your reputation? I need to know how you felt during that time. I mean, I do know how you felt because we had those, a whole bunch of phone calls about that because we share the same fucking story. And, in the movie of my life, it'll be brought out. Until then, I'm just going to keep it under wraps. But I want to talk about, the adversity and the struggle that you face. Because while we're championing all of the shit that you're doing and the talent that you have and the luck that you're having and stuff, I want to know how you overcame that as well. Because while there's no job calling you, right after getting, an extra educational degree, now somebody's trying to run a smear campaign on you when things are actually cooking for you. So
I think there are a couple things. Good manners will take you farther than money ever will. And I think for me, I've always tried to do right by people. And just because someone says something about you doesn't make it true. And I think, in this industry, people who are jealous of you and people who don't have the same work ethic as you, people who don't have your vision, will try to assassinate your character. And I think the one good thing that you have is your name. And so when you do right by people, when you try to do the right thing, and even if you make mistakes, like I think in this social media climate that we're in, it's like nobody can make mistakes. I feel like you learn more from mistakes than you do success sometimes. I think sometimes people get comfortable off of those successes. So I think, anybody who's, tried to throw salt on my name, I think the body of work stands the test of time.
Shit, he said, throw salt on my name, it just sweetens my sauce.
There you go.
And I wanted to ask you, because it took a lot of guts when me and you first met, when you realized the fuck shit that was going on behind the scenes, and and me and you had already spoken. It's like we had already built a relationship, and then literally as we're building this relationship, that fuck shit is happening from the common bond that we have. We'll just call it the devil, right now. But how did you know that, like, my loyalty was going to be 100 with you? Because ultimately it was like through one of my people, that kind of connected us. So it's like, how did you know that I needed to know about the devil that was on my shoulder without wrestling the waters? Like, how were you able to do that? You're a magician, aren't you?
No, I mean, I went to college. I have 2 degrees, but I also I got family.
He just said go and brush your shoulders off.
No. What I'm saying is just because I went to college doesn't mean that I don't know what I know, and I have family. I'll leave it like that. But like at the end of the day, what's understood is that have been spoken about. And I think game recognizes game in that regard.
Real recognizes real, and I'm so glad that, like, I listened to your words, because it's like from that point on, I was able to see that fuck shit immediately. And it's like I always had my eye on watching. All of a sudden, just like you told me, shit fucking blew up. Like, and the funny thing is, I found, how many other people I have found just like me? Like, we could start a support group. We really can. That's how many people there are. Like,
Hey,
yeah, like, I mean, and it's important to maintain relationships in this industry, especially in hip hop, as a white Jewish person, trying to be accepted by a culture that really considers us like visitors, or guests in the world of hip hop, as as Lord Jamar colorfully puts it, all the time. Even though I feel like I've grown with hip hop, since the early 80s. I was breakdancing on a cardboard box in 1983. So it's like, but I was so glad that we were able to form that bond, because it's like those struggles, kind of, I always say that, you can't really enjoy the taste of victory until you've, suffered the taste of that shitty taste of defeat, and it's like, we were both kind of at our low points, when that fuck shit happened, indirectly. Thank God, like, me and you were able to work through it and be able to maintain this, great relationship, because it's opened up doors for both of us, I think, over the years. And I've always wanted to be able to, like, return that favor to you and shed, like, the greatest light possible on you. So, from me to you, there you go. I'm shining my light on you right there. So, well, I always wanted to, to thank you for, kind of looking out for me, because that was a time when, I'm kind of stepping away from the people that were executive producing me. I'm paying and managing my own shit. I have years in the game, but now I'm in this rebranded, I'm not Lyric Enforcer. I'm JopauL, and I'm this pop star, and I need to do this and that. So, I've always respected, your ability to, peep game, from, a long play, and put me onto it, just to know, okay, listen, over there is bad. So, play along, but as soon as it gets rocky, to fucking dip the fuck out. So I always appreciated that. So
my pleasure.
So what's next for Scoop?
Continuing to just be consistent. I mean, that's one of the things that I think since I've known you to now, I've been, no days off. I've recently left my position at heavy.com, where I was a senior writer. I was there for 2.5 years, and kind of right now enjoying some downtime, but still busy, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. When you're not obligated to anyone but yourself, but you have to take care of some responsibilities.
Yeah. So like I'm still doing a lot of TV hits. The NBA trading deadline is March 25th. So, I'm appearing a lot more on television these days, doing TV. Have done some spots at MSG Networks, Al Jazeera Network, SNY, a myriad of other places. So I'm still at NBC Sports Washington. So I'm still busy in that regard. Really just focusing on my brand, rebranding some teams.
I see that. So make sure everyone subscribe to Scoopy's YouTube. Make sure you follow him on Instagram. Look for the blue check. Make sure, you see the blue check, because there's plenty of people that want to fake the funk and pretend that they're Scoop. So trust me, I know the scoop about B.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, at the end of the day, just staying consistent, man. Enjoying my life, catching up with people, that I don't have. I'm kind of out of the rigor of, being a writer and just writing every day and getting stuff done. I'm tweeting a lot, just the things that I'm hearing, from front office people, players, and more. So, yeah, man, I'm enjoying what I do.
You're appreciating who you are. You're taking a bad situation and you're turning it into a positive, because we've all been fucked over with this COVID shit. So it's like the fact that you were able to find yourself, and you seem a lot calmer now. Every time I spoke to you, it was like you either drank like a quadruple espresso or went in the bathroom and went, okay, we're ready to go. So now you seem so calm and so cool and collective, and it's great to see you it's great to see you happy, my brother. It's like I take pride, in celebrating that in you, because we've both seen each other at really, really bad times in both of our lives, and the fact that we were able to have that friend ear to kind of grow with each other, it's a blessing. It really is. So before I let you go, because I've taken up too much of your time already, what's your ultimate goal? If you had to put a little checklist in place, just in case some of my viewers have the connections and they stay around to the end, please, hopefully, what's your dream checklist job that Scoopy is fucking happier than a pig in shit to wake up every single morning?
I mean, I like interviewing. I like dialogue. I like asking questions. As I mentioned, one of my favorite shows, growing up was NBA Inside Stuff with Ahmad Rashad. I was featured on it as a kid. To kind of rebrand that once again would be pretty cool. They did it again with Grant Hill and Kristen Ledlow within the last 10 years to kind of do it again. Cool. I think Ahmad was that OG. And to do that type of news magazine show is cool. Those one-on-one interviews I enjoy. I love the game of basketball, and I'm really enjoying just sitting home watching it, and that. So somewhere close to the game, continue to be close to the game, and just advancing and growing and all that good stuff. I'm doing it now with my podcast. I had Damon Dash on my
Thank
podcast.
You. I was like, please mention it, or I'm going to jump in and speak on it. I was like, he has a podcast, people.
Yeah. So Scoopy Radio, we garner anywhere from 2 to 3 million streams annually. We've had anybody from Pete Sampras to Charles Barkley to Damon Dash to Too Short, Shaq, myriad of people. But yeah, man, I a lot of those I'm having. What's up?
You see this because I'm happy for you, because it's it's if I hadn't seen it firsthand, what I'm saying, it's it might be oh, okay, because I interview celebrities all the time, but it's I know where we came from and I know how hard we've worked. Right. So it's to when I'm looking at your YouTube and I see, Dame Dash, and Shaq, and I see, even, all the bullshit, with that, radio show you run, I mean, we don't got to talk about it, what I'm saying? But you were underappreciated, underpaid, what I'm saying, and undervalued, and we all know that.
But you know what? From that experience, I learned a lot. And I'll tell you, for me, one of the things that I learned during my time period at CBS was actually headlines, timing of when to tweet, how to send stuff out to publications once you get that viral hit, how you move it. I had a show, a podcast at CBS Radio. I was a contributor to CBS Sports Radio, CBS Local Sports. Had a podcast there as well, and I was a contributor to CBS This Morning. The minute I got in the door, you could probably appreciate this. I felt like, if you remember the Jim Jones A Day in the Fast Life album, as well as the DVD that came with it.
Shout out Jim Jones and PQ Chanel. She's doing wonderful things with Jim Jones.
Yes, sir. And I remember I had I was in college when the Day in the Fast Life came out, and I remember watching Jimmy, as the artist, but then Jimmy as the A&R in that documentary, and dealing with Kevin Lau specifically. And I remember really and truly looking at that in college and thinking that was dope, and kind of as a person who was really freelancing at the time, back in like 2015, 2016, and moving around and writing here and trying different things and connecting with people.
It's called hustling, people. Hustling. Take notes.
I feel like, during that time, I was able to, book different guests in sports and entertainment. That podcast, we had DJ Khaled on, we had Mark Cuban on, we had, baseball players on, we had, entertainment lawyers on, we had, a myriad of other people, but also learning how to write headlines and to make those headlines move and paying attention to SEO and keywords and, like all that heavy hitting, stuff hitting.
So basically, you got like a crash course on like clickbait 101 on how to make shit move.
The digital hustle.
Yeah, listen, as long as you were able to be a sponge, and absorb that information that you were able to utilize, that's why you're here today on the Verified Podcast. So I couldn't be happier for you. If there's ever anything that I could ever do for you, I'm only a phone call away. And as soon as COVID is over, we're definitely going to chop it up in person. We're going to have a drink. We're going to relax. We're going to celebrate both of our successes, and I just wanted to really, show my appreciation for all that you've done for me, as well as the industry, which you respectfully hold a tenured title, and it is well deserved and well earned. And if there's any of these white people that I got to talk to in order to straighten them out, you just let me know, because I got you. Okay.
Duly noted.
Yeah, I will not let them hold down my brother.
Yes,
Scoop
sir.
B.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, in my final remarks, I always like to leave everyone with a quote. It's kind of cheesy, but when you think about it, you just apply it to life. And it goes a little something like this. We're all just here for a small cup of coffee.
Yes, we are.
I'm just trying to drink it while it's still hot.
Yes, sir.
I'm your boy. I'm JopauL. We were just chopping it up with Brandon Scoopy Robinson, the man who wears many hats all across the industry. Make sure you follow him and check it out. We are brought to you by Radio Pushers and Results of No Hype. Make sure you check us out at theverifiedpodcast.com. We are the only platform where we only interview verified artists. Anyone else tries to do that, make sure you punch him in the throat and kick him in that spot in between the balls and the ass. My name's JopauL. We out of here. One love.